Witchers! Welcome back to the Witcher Lorecast. This is your host, Tom, or Robots. I'm here with Toasty. And Toasty, today we're talking about, I think this is probably one of the most numerous monsters. You come across these guys like everywhere, right?
Everywhere.
Absolutely
everywhere.
Yeah, we're talking about ghouls today. Ghouls and Alghouls.
Mm-hmm.
So both. It's kind of a combo Bestiary episode. And let's just jump right into it. Where do we start when it comes to ghouls and Alghouls?
So we start with the first one.
We'll start with ghouls.
You start with ghouls. My segues are terrible today. I'm still kind of tired.
This is going to be a good episode, everybody.
After the Northern Wars, necrophages generally grew bolder and multiplied in the Northern Kingdoms. Ghouls, a subspecies, became the most common corpse eaters, usually found roaming around in packs, distinguishable from their cousins Alghouls by their sickly paleness of their visage. After hunting unknowing locals, they shredded their prey to pieces with fangs and claws, the corpse then left to age. They can also hunt livestock, such as sheep and goats. While generally sensitive to silver, ghouls are also affected by light, such as the sun or fire.
So this is a species of monster that is particularly a big fan of warfare because of all the bodies that are left. And you see that in the games a little bit, like the remnants of a battlefield.
3 especially.
Yeah. And then a bunch of ghouls picking over the dead bodies on a battlefield. So we're going to go through like we normally do. We're going to talk about where they show up in each of the games. So Witcher 1, Witcher 2. There's no ghouls in Witcher 2? Are we skipping over that one?
It might have gone by a different name, but
yeah, technically, Witcher 1 and Witcher 3, and then the real world instances of lore and fiction and myth that builds to influence this series like we normally do. So, all right, so let's start off with The Witcher 1. We've got a journal bestiary entry here. I'll go ahead and read it. It says, ghouls are said to have been humans who were once forced into cannibalism and after many years spent in dark crypts underwent a horrifying transformation. Only human flesh can satisfy their eternal evil hunger, so they kill people and store the remains in the recesses of their lairs. So this is, if anybody's a fan also of the Fallout games and Fallout 76 and some of the cryptids, this sounds very similar to the, what was it called? It just fell out of my brain. Fallout 76 cryptids. But I'll find it in a second. Go ahead, Toasty.
I was trying to think of him when it was like a Mothman, but I don't think it was Mothman.
No, the Wendigo. The Wendigo also has a similar quality. I mean, there are ghouls in Fallout, but those ghouls are irradiated humans, so the origin is a little bit different.
The Fallout Wendigo kind of looks rather similar, I would say.
Yeah, lanky arms, the same, the claws, the kind of bulbous head. Yeah, yeah. So similar. I'm assuming there's probably some similar origins across different cultures for these kinds of creatures. But what is this classified? We usually go through the classification and some of the tactics to fight them and stuff like that. So in The Witcher 1, how is that set up?
Okay, so for The Witcher 1, they are classed as necrophage, one of the one creature type or monster types that doesn't actually change throughout the games. I know we like back in Witcher 1 we get a lot of like really strange ones like ornithosaurs or whatnot. So,
yeah, right.
But necrophage stays strong and true throughout the series. They occur in battlefields, like we mentioned before, as well as cemeteries and abandoned crypts.
Anywhere you can find dead bodies.
Essentially, yeah. They are resistant to common poisons, but are susceptible to silver and necrophage oil. The strong style is most efficient against ghouls. Experienced witchers use the group style while fighting multiple ghouls. So for people who don't know, in The Witcher 1, you had like separate fighting styles, like fast, strong, group, where basically the attacks were different and some of them were more effective against certain creatures as opposed to others. So it was a very strange mechanic.
It's
Curious
one of
how
those.
they might do that in the remake. I
Yeah.
don't think that we're going to have quite the same effect in the.
It feels like one of those like early PC game type mechanics that was overly complicated in a way that didn't really add to the game. It just gave you a different button to push to and then figure things out. But so typically these come in groups, so the group style would be beneficial when going against more than one.
Definitely.
Right. So what's the general tactic here for fighting them in The Witcher 1?
Well, so they will attempt to try to knock you down and then surround you and start eating you alive. So very similar to like zombie media, where they just basically dogpile onto you and try to just like rip you apart. Right. Nothing too crazy there. The tactic would be, if you're fighting that many, use group style to kind of keep them a little bit at bay, because it keeps them kind of out of range a little bit. And as for loot off of them, you can retrieve the Abomination Lymph, White Vinegar, and Ghoul Blood.
White Vinegar. We're gonna have a ghoul salad tonight with some ghoul white vinegar dressing.
Oh, the oil and vinegar dressing on the ghoul salad.
Mom, I thought you said we were out of salad dressing. I found some more. Don't worry.
Oh dear.
But you didn't go to the market. Yeah, it's fine. Okay.
Don't eat that. It probably would make you rather sick.
Yep. All right. So what else do we need to know about them?
So abomination nests, and it seems to be the term that they use for ghouls a lot in Witcher 1. Nests in cemeteries, old burial mounds known as kurgans, necropolises, and on battlefields. Disgusting in form and character, it emerges to feed usually during the full moon, and well-rotted corpses are a delicacy for it. When driven by hunger, the ghoul will not hesitate to prey on the living. Only by fire, silver, and bright light can they be harmed. For this reason, it hunts only at night. Okay, so this sounds pretty standard for what we would know about ghouls. Witcher 1 isn't too different. Now, you've got a section here from the Monster Book. What does this say? So Monster Book, again, for people who aren't aware, are kind of like the creators giving us, or not creators, but CD Projekt Red kind of giving us like their reasoning or like their inspirations for some of the monsters and how they design them and whatnot. Which is pretty cool. And they actually have a post of the Monster Book for ghouls. So this is taken from, the Monster Book. Ghouls, like drowners, appear often in the game. An understatement. Yeah, I feel like often is an understatement. Yeah. Geralt frequently has the opportunity to practice his silver sword techniques on this monster. Since the drowner became grotesque, we made the ghoul both scary and a bit pathetic without rendering him humorous. Yeah, drowners and ghouls are kind of similar. They're both necrophages, but they're trying to make them distinct from each other. Yeah, where ghoul looks more like the rotting dead. In a way, the drowners look like drowned dead, which is a type. It's a type. Well, no, the drowned dead is a type of drowner. It's like an evolved form. It's not my type, but that's fine. Right. That's cool. That's cool. Everyone's got their type. It might have been Crow's type, if I remember. Oh, good. As a foul scavenger, he has all the necessary attributes. Deadly pale, spotted skin, a noseless head resembling a skull, and a strong jaw capable of cracking open any bone. A bit of artistic trickery and clear connotations went into creating the model for this rather dumb, hideous creature. The ghoul is no joke. It is stocky and ready to attack. It loves feasting on human cadavers and has nothing against fresh, warm meat. Right. When it grabs its prey with its ape-like arms, there is no escape. Ape-like arms. Slender, decaying ape-like arms. Yep. All right. So we go from The Witcher 1 to The Witcher 3, which most people are familiar with. And we've got a bestiary entry from that game. It says, ghouls creep and crawl at night, eating everything in sight. In a snap, they'd eat you too, chop you up for a ghoulish stew, which is a children's rhyme in the world of The Witcher. I guess and people on the continent like to, make these rhymes up about monsters. Yeah, I can't. If I recall correctly, I think that they're like singing that in like Crookback Bog, like the kids that are in Crookback Bog. I believe that is the little nursery rhyme that they're doing. I might be mistaken, but the ghoulish stew is ringing familiar here.
Yeah.
Ghouls and graveyears are hard to describe. In part, they resemble humans, yet on the whole, they are the utter negation of all that is human. Though they have arms and legs like men, they walk on all fours like dogs or badgers. Though they have eerily familiar faces, one searches them in vain for any sign of sentiment, reason, or even a spark of consciousness. They are driven by one thing and one thing only, an insatiable craving for human flesh. Ghouls and their more dangerous cousins, graveyears, usually feed in small groups, at times led by an Alghoul. Since they delight most in the taste of fresh carcasses, they appear wherever newly dug graves are to be found: cemeteries, crypts, catacombs, and battlefields. Whenever the opportunity arises, they hunt the living as well, especially when they have strength in numbers. In a one-on-one fight with a trained witcher, a ghoul poses little threat, but one must remember that wounded individuals can erupt in a mad frenzy. At such times, they attack fiercely, paying no heed to their own safety and brushing off all wounds. One must likewise bear in mind that ghouls and graveyears are particularly dangerous around dusk and at night.
So similar, but a little bit different and described in a different way. The whole going on all fours kind of thing. Also stronger at night, kind of come out in the dark. The whole like erupting into a mad frenzy thing, that's a mechanic in the game where the ghouls just start like flailing about, and you kind of just got to get out of the way and let them do their thing or get behind them. All right, so we've got like class and a bunch of other stats here from The Witcher 3. So let's go through those.
So, of course, again, the same necrophage. They have the variant known as Alghouls, which we are going to talk about. They occur anywhere near corpses.
You got corpses?
Simple in that one.
You got
near
flies
corpses.
and ghouls, both things.
Basically, for The Witcher 3 is everywhere because there's bodies everywhere because it's an active war zone.
Right. Yeah. Good old
they are susceptible to necrophage oil. Although I do find it interesting, it's not listed particularly in the bestiary, but one of the things is that ghouls do regenerate health, and if you use Igni, it stunts their regeneration
because they're on fire. Right.
Yeah. So Igni is kind of also a tool there that you can use. And then for loot, they have quite a bit. Ghoul's blood, monster claw, monster eye, monster liver, monster saliva, monster tongue, monster tooth, venom extract, lesser blue mutagen, and lesser green mutagen.
Yeah, so like we've normally seen in a lot of these, the number of different kinds of things you get from monsters in The Witcher 3 is a lot greater than in The Witcher 1. There's a lot more crafting and options to sell stuff and all of that.
Yeah. So if you end up needing are in need of the more base monster parts, just go kill a bunch of ghouls. They will provide you with plenty of
monster saliva. I wonder if that's the same as the vinegar.
It's possible. It's probably just as acidic, if I would have to guess.
I mean, where does the vinegar come from? It's got to come from one of their liquids.
Oh gosh.
All right. Combat tactics. Let's talk about combat tactics.
A key strategy to make fighting a group of ghouls easier is to keep moving around until one ghoul gets separated. When this happens, circle the ghoul and try to kill it. Do small attacks now and then, but keep dancing around. I mean, granted, let's be honest, a key to fighting everything in The Witcher is to just keep moving.
Keep moving.
Pretty much. If a ghoul is low on health and starts snarling loudly, this is a sign that the ghoul is becoming enraged. Make this ghoul your priority to kill, as otherwise it will regenerate most of its health. When enraged, the ghoul behavior grows more aggressive. The Axii sign works well for stopping the effects of enrage.
So another use for a sign, a different sign, but so two different signs are useful against these. All right, so let's talk about Alghouls and how they're different. So what is the difference? What is an Alghoul?
So they are a subspecies of necrophage, biological cousins of ghouls, but are distinguished by their darker visage, larger size and strength, colorings, and intelligence.
So they're like ghouls on steroids, or like the Hulk form of a ghoul.
Yeah, and in The Witcher 3 specifically, they do have that very distinguishable set of like back spikes that can like deter you. So also a way of showing differentiating them from regular ghouls.
Right. All right, so we got another bestiary entry here. Alghouls are ghouls which have been devouring corpses for so many years that human flesh becomes irresistible and they begin to prey on the living. They are seen in crypts and on battlefields, frequently surrounded by ghouls. Simple folk do not notice the difference between these two types of scavengers, unlike witchers, who know that the Alghoul is a more aggressive and challenging opponent. So this is like a regular ghoul that has been around long enough to develop, kind of grow in size and become bigger, but then also start feasting off of living people, which probably helps them grow bigger also.
They are, of course, classed as necrophage. A very specific thing it notes for occurrence is that they occur differently than ghouls because they appear in old necropolises and crypts, which kind of just gives me the impression that they generally are in more like, I guess, older areas. And like it kind of gives them more like a vibe of like a leader in a sense. Like I know that the intelligence isn't really there for them to be like a proper like pack leader or something, but it's like kind of like they're back in like the older, like more revered places and probably send out ghouls to like basically retrieve stuff for them. Like, okay, like you're going to bring me back food. I don't have to go do the work as much.
Right. Safer than roaming around and finding battlefields. They've kind of found these locations to nest in that are a little bit more, I don't know, protected for them.
Yeah. They are immune to common poisons as opposed to the ghoul being resistant, and are resistant to knockdown attempts. So
don't use those.
Harder to get than regular ghouls. They are sensitive to silver, and the strong style is the most effective one.
Okay.
Very similar. Alghouls, similar tactics. They try to knock down their opponents and eat them alive. They are still not very intelligent, so their tactics are rather simple. And then for loot, you can. Same with the white vinegar that still comes around with them, but they also have. You can also loot cadaverine and Alghoul marrow.
All right, so we still get the white vinegar. That's the important part.
The important part. You got to get that salad.
Got to get your salad. So that's the Witcher 1. Witcher 3 also has a bestiary that says an Alghoul's basically a bad arse ghoul. It's all one word: bad arse ghoul. Yarpen Zigrin, dwarven warrior.
I mean, it is Yarpen.
It is Yarpen.
That's exactly what you would expect from Yarpen.
That's good. That's good. All right. So what's the description for the Witcher 3 version of these?
Alghouls differ from normal ghouls in size, strength, coloring, and most importantly, intelligence. Whereas ghouls and graveyears are primitive creatures unfit to plan even the simplest ambush, Alghouls and their kindred, such as scimitars, which is like cemetery, CEMETAURS, are capable of forethought and are thus much more dangerous. Ghouls seem to possess wits enough to at least know a brighter mind when they see it, and so let Alghouls and scimitars lead their packs. A pack so led will terrorize all in its path, attacking not only lone travelers, but also caravans and even farmsteads. When encountering such a pack, the Alghoul should be eliminated as a first priority, leaving the other beasts for once their leader is gone. One, be particularly careful when fighting Alghouls around dusk and at night when they fight with doubled strength.
I also am a night person. I'm kind of an evening guy. But my strength doesn't double. That would be cool.
I've been so like conditioned for morning like
work.
Night. I'm just tired at night at this point.
Yeah, because your
also
job
it helped my work schedule is get up at 4 a.m. most days. So,
that's crazy.
Nighttime, I'm just dead to the world most of the time.
Right. All right. So, but there's more to it.
During combat, Alghouls and scimitars try risky maneuvers aimed at knocking their opponents to the ground so the others can finish the job by tearing them to shreds. Like a normal ghoul, an injured Alghoul can fall into a frenzy and attack with blind fury. An experienced witcher knows to get out of its way on such occasions and strike from behind, while for an inexperienced witcher, such a turn of events often marks the end of his path.
Okay, so these also are classed necrophage, just like in all the other ones. And occurrences include battlefields, other locations with large numbers of corpses, shallow graves, places like that, right? Now, they're susceptible to necrophage oil and the Axii sign. So in this one, it actually lists the Axii sign.
The Axii sign is more specifically in this case is whenever they are going on that like defensive, like back spike, like stance, you can use Axii to basically stun them out of it and allow yourself to attack them.
And they have a little bit less loot than regular ghouls. Alghoul bone marrow, Alghoul claw, Alghoul mutagen, and lesser red mutagen. So a little bit more specific. But of course, because these are Alghoul bone marrow and claw and mutagen, they're going to be more valuable because they're more rare. So you've got that. All right, well, let's talk combat tactics. You're coming across one of these things. They're smarter, they're stronger, definitely don't want to fight them at night.
Yeah. Alghouls are more powerful than ghouls and graveyears, making them the greatest threat in a ghoul pack, which they are normally found with. An otherwise coordinated pack becomes less so once the Alghoul has been dealt with. Axii forces the spines on an Alghoul to retract after a few seconds, with the added benefit of temporarily stunning the creature. An Alghoul can emit a piercing scream to stun nearby victims, as well as send nearby ghouls into a raging frenzy. When enraged, an Alghoul grows spines on its back. This makes attacking it a very dangerous proposition, as the spines are harmful if you use melee attacks.
Right. So be careful. If it's pointy, be careful. Right?
Yes, be careful.
That's the general rule.
Watch out for the sharp things.
Watch out for the pointy things. All right, cool. Well, we need to take a break and go thank our patrons, but we will be back with some real-world mythology about ghouls, so don't go anywhere.
Very well. Let us get this over with. Something has infested my vineyard.
Great. Let me go prepare my something oil then.
All right, we're in the middle of the show. This is where we get to thank our patrons, including our brand newest patron, Sergey, maybe? I don't know. I'm probably butchering your name. Sergey P. Welcome to the Patreon. I'm so sorry that I don't read words very well. And also thank you to Ben of Tamaria and Jared M., our higher vampire tier patrons who get shout outs every week. And to all of our patrons, thank you so much for your support. We really do appreciate it. If you are looking to help support the show, get ad-free episodes, join us at the end of each month to talk about The Witcher. And that's coming up in 2 weeks. So on the 29th, Monday the 29th at 9 p.m. Eastern, we'll be having our patron chat. And we haven't decided what we're talking about yet, but if you'd like to chime in with some thoughts on that, you can do so on the Discord. Head over to patreon.com/WitcherLorecast. That's the place you can go check out all the different Patreon stuff. Also, if you leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, we'll read it out on a future episode of the show. And you can also rate the show on Spotify. 5-star ratings on there are extremely helpful, and even comment on the episodes. So all of that is extremely helpful. Thank you to everybody for the support. Let's move on with the rest of the show.
You smell of death and destiny, heroics and heartbreak.
It's onion.
Right, yeah.
So Toasty, I know with all of these Bestiary episodes, you do a little bit of research, kind of dig into the origins of these monsters, or at least the monster concepts in the real world. Where did you find the ghoul idea came from?
So it's a bit of an interesting one, but it seems like the ghoul finds its origins, or at least as far as I could tell, in Arabic mythology.
Okay, so we're going to the Middle East. Yeah, a lot of these we've been going to like Western or Eastern Europe, but now we're going to the Middle East with this one.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. So in Arabic mythology, it is an evil spirit or monster, undead, devilish, who eats human flesh.
Sounds about right.
It has no particular image of representation. Sometimes it is considered as the evil female spirit of the desert. They are ugly and stink of death.
So many times they pin evil things on women. Mm-hmm. It's like welcome to humanity, where the majority of the men historically and many of them today are misogynistic. Cool.
The word ghoul means to take away. It is used for a gravedigger by profession, someone who is creepy or a grave robber.
Oh, wow. So that word was actually used for people who did that. Mm-hmm. They didn't necessarily consume the bodies that they found grave robbing, but they were looking for wealth or items or things of value.
Yeah. That's interesting. In modern times, it is used to frighten disobedient children, which, so many of our like fairy tales and things like that are. So,
right.
Ghouls steal coins, drink blood, eat human flesh, and devour young children. When it eats the dead, it can take that person's form. There are similarities between ghouls and vampires. Ghouls are also repelled by sunlight, are night creatures, have sharp teeth and claws, but they are not intelligent. They are just driven by their hunger, and they will eat meat, not just suck blood.
Okay, so this has a lot of similarities to the ghouls that we see in the books in the game.
You can't take your form in the game, which imagine how terrifying that might be.
Yeah, that would be like a ghoul and a Doppler mixed together.
Yeah, and I know I have seen this representation in like the ghouls in Supernatural. They had a very particular episode on that where ghouls are able to eat people, and then are also able to take their form and get their memories. So they effectively can become that person for all intents and purposes, which is a terrifying concept.
Yeah, I think there was a similar creature. I'm thinking way back to like Buffy or Angel, one of those like Joss Whedon series. There may have been a similar monster that did something like that. I'm trying to remember.
Episodes. There probably was. I mean, there was a lot of like various monsters and stuff. Most of them were like demons in those shows.
Right. Right. I don't know. It's been a long time. I'm going back 20 years.
Buffy,
right.
I am less versed. I'm much more versed.
Angel is the better show. High five.
Yeah.
We agree on that. We agree on something. Look at that. That's amazing.
I just liked Angel a lot. He was a cool dude. But yeah. In some versions, if a human drinks blood from the vampire, he can turn into a ghoul. The vampire becomes a human superior. Humans must continue to drink blood from a vampire once a month, and then he does not age, heals quicker, is stronger, and faster. I do actually know this. This is actually a thing in the Vampire the Masquerade tabletop, where they have the vampires, and then they can make people into their ghouls, which are basically they have some of the blessings of the vampire, but they are not vampires. They're still humans for all intents and purposes. But if you feed them, like I think it is once a month actually is the actual mechanic on it, you can give them some of your power, the strength, speed, reflexes, and they are more obedient to you because they are under the power of your blood. And if you stop the bloodletting, it has like a very potent like side effect for them.
Yeah. So it's a powerful way for them to string you along without actually turning you into a vampire yourself.
My vampire character has a ghoul, so
of course it does.
If male and female ghouls have offspring, a formless thing, it is consumed by their mother. So apparently they can reproduce, but they don't generally keep them. They just eat them.
Or they just eat it because they're monsters and they just want to eat anything anyway. So
yeah, pretty much. It is a shape-shifting demon living in the desert, taking the form of animals, usually hyenas. It preys on victims, slays and eats them.
There's a lot of stories around hyenas historically. Hyenas were seen as in some ways as demons, or like a lot of people didn't trust or understand them because they didn't work like regular dogs and they don't work like cats. They were they were considered dangerous and one of those, creatures that you would warn your children about because you didn't want your kids to get eaten by hyenas.
Well, isn't because there's a lot of very unnerving qualities, or they're scavengers, so this kind of does fit into the same category with consuming dead flesh. But it was also their laughs actually can come off as very human and are misleading, where you think that there's another person and then it's just they've lured you into a trap. So it can become a very unnerving creep, especially if you think at night. Oh gosh.
Yeah. You're out by yourself in the desert at night, creepy. And over the next sand dune or something, you hear some laughing and you're like, who's over there? Yeah. That can be extremely unnerving to discover. It's a pack of hyenas and they're going to hunt me.
And I obviously didn't do research on hyenas, but I would be curious to know if there actually is things with demonic origins. Cause we know in D&D, gnolls are hyena people, but they are considered fiends or demons. I
bet I don't know for sure. I feel like this is one of those hints that at a trend of things you see in old literature pointing at things like hyenas as being demonic or at least just an odd, distrustful animal, things like that. The serpents, usually that's a serpent quality as well. And some other animals.
I guess they probably wouldn't be considered as honorable creatures because of their tactics and whatnot. Whereas them, we often view different types of animals and the way that they interact with the environment as being more honorable creatures.
Right. So, the noble lion or elephant, or these kinds of creatures are seen as being.
Hyenas don't have any moral code. They just won't eat anything and will go by any means to do so.
Scavengers.
In some stories, ghoul is genie, genie,
or jinn.
Jinn.
It's kind of all connected, right?
However you think. A creature made of a wonderful and smokeless fire. Genie can be good or evil. It is believed that ghoul originates from Iblis in Islam, the devil or shaitan, who is a genie, refused to obey Adam.
So this connects it all the way back to that religious imagery and concepts of, again, the demons. This is the story of a devil, right?
Yeah. According to the legends, church bells scare away hostile creatures. It is better to trick them than to fight them. The only way to kill it is by one blow, because the other blows would resurrect it from the dead.
Weird. Okay. Don't hit it twice. It comes back.
In Arabian folklore, ghoul is connected with the graveyard. It spends time in uninhabited places and burial grounds. It is believed that they feast in catacombs with conquered armies.
So that tracks as well.
Very similar.
Yeah. So that's all Middle Eastern kind of mythology. Is there a European side to this?
Yes. So there is a European representation. Ghoul is a cannibalistic monster, often thought of as undead in European folklore. They were once human, but they brought the curse on themselves by eating human flesh, dead or alive. They feed on corpses or living flesh, often abducting young children or luring away unwary people into abandoned places.
Yeah, this is interesting because that whole eating human flesh turns you into a monster thing is a common trend and also can be found in Native American
that's
cultures.
Native American culture for the Wendigo, I believe.
Right. So even though these two cultures were separated by vast distances in time, they had very similar concepts that came to mind. And it just goes to show that the way that we process things as humans is often pretty similar, even when we have cultures that are halfway across the globe from each other. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty cool.
They are disgustingly ugly and stink of death. They are immensely strong, but geniuses in a sarcastic way, thus tricking them is always a better way than fighting them. So they're smart, I guess kind of in a Loki sense of being smart, like a trickster sense.
Tricksters.
Yeah.
Right. But they're also susceptible to being tricked. Mm-hmm. So, you don't want to have to fight it if you don't have to. If you can fool it and get it to go the wrong way and then it goes away and it doesn't bother you, that's probably the better option.
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't have witchers in our real world, so you don't have the super strength to battle its super strength.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there is Ben of Temeria.
And there's been a Temeria, that's true.
He is a witcher.
According to the tradition, church bells scare away the storm, the plague, the demons, the ghouls, and every hostile creature other than humans.
Right, because the power of Jesus.
The power of faith, the power of the church.
Right. All of that stuff. Well, that's cool. I mean, it sounds like there's pretty firm connections here between the mythology and then the kind of creature that we get in The Witcher. So sometimes we end up with these stories and it's like this roundabout crazy version of something that we're just
I always think about the Leshy. I always go back to the Leshy because
the old man in the forest and like all of that weird stuff. Yeah, there's so much weird stuff out there. But this one seems pretty consistent across cultures, and it's got a little bit of connection to demonic stuff or vampire. So of course, as these myths get retold over and over and over throughout time, people start drawing connections to the things that they're more familiar with the other stories that they know. So they kind of branch out and connect to other things. And we can kind of see that here in the development of Ghouls, which is pretty cool. So awesome. This has been a lot of fun, Toasty. Any other thoughts on Ghouls or Alghouls?
No, I mean, it's just one of those. It's cool that they have like such a kind of interesting, I guess, origin source to get pulled from here for The Witcher, especially knowing that like we don't really expand on them very much in The Witcher. There's nothing I say unique about them in a sense, but it's still very interesting.
Yeah,
they're the ads of The Witcher, where the thing that you fight probably most often, I would say. As far as from what I remember from my Witcher 3 experience anyways.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to the Drowners. They're one of those just fodder enemies. I'm wondering
if I fought more ghouls or more Drowners in The Witcher, because there's definitely a lot of both of those.
Yeah, it depends if you spent more time near the coast or islands. But yeah, they're kind of that fodder enemy, but they've got a cool background. And you could imagine an evolution of them, like the next step beyond Alghoul, as being like, that's kind of a pack leader because it's the big one and everybody else just kind of goes, oh, you're more powerful and big, kind of like animals, and so they flock to it. But can you imagine another evolution where you actually have smart ones? They kind of like become a little bit more, I don't know, strategic, and then that becomes even more dangerous. That would be cool too. So, all right, well, that's it for this episode. Where are we going next time? We've got 1 week before our patron chat this month. We got one more episode. Any thoughts on what's coming up?
It's probably time to move to another location. Kind of talked about a lot of I don't know what. It must be getting near the end of the show. I'm doing an accent.
It's accent. It's accent time. I need to have a button I press that's like accent time.
I must be getting to the end of the show. I started doing an accent, but it's time to move to a different location. We are getting pretty close to having done a full tour of the continents. Just a few more places on the mainland, Skellige, and then. Of course, Nilfgaard. I've been kind of saving them for last.
Yeah. Well, that's a big place. I mean, there's a lot of locations underneath their banner, so there's a lot going on there. So cool. We'll move on maybe to the Skellige Islands and maybe find some more water monsters out in those places as well. You got anything else going on you want to share?
I'm doing the Cyberpunk Lorecast, which also a shout out to Sergi. They also signed up as a Patreon or a patron over on the Cyberpunk.
Nice.
I would like to just assume that means that they must like me very particularly. Hopefully, I don't know. I'm just trying to boost my ego at this point. But so thank you. And then I've also do the Cyberpunk Red live play podcast, Cyberpunk apostrophe D, with the Fumbling 4 and Almighty Crit Gang.
Awesome. Well, go check that stuff out.
Sentence like there was more to say.
Yeah, I was like,
there was a very weird ending to that sentence. I didn't.
It's accent time, so anything goes.
Yep.
Yeah, go to robotsradio.net. Check out all the different links to those shows and the rest of the shows that I do, and you guys know the drill. We'll be here next week with another episode. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time,
stay safe on the path.
See you later, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Witcher Lorecast. We'd love to hear about your experiences with the games and the books and the TV series and all your thoughts on everything. Please check out the Robots Radio Discord and follow us on Twitter at Witcher Lorecast.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.